My name is Anna Flores, and today I'm going to talk about who I am, what my work is about, as well as to talk about the concepts and the process behind some of my work. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself a little bit better. I was born in United States, Delaware. However, a big part of my childhood I grew up in Mexico City, where both of my parents were born and raised there. Around the age of 12 to 13 years old, I moved to San Antonio, Texas, where I later on pursued my associate's degree in arts at Northwest Vista College and my bachelor degrees in fine arts with a minor in art history and criticism in UT of San Antonio. For most of my life, or in my early childhood, I was moving to states and even countries until I landed in San Antonio. Because of it, I felt like there isn't a place that I could really call myself home. I feel like there's not a place that I belong to, and there's not like a strict area or community that I feel that I'm from, thus affecting a lot of my work. In fact, my work, which primarily consists of sculptures, are done to make a connection between myself and the world surrounding me. My work not only helps me to understand why I belong in this world, but also defies and challenges my destiny, which destiny could be just staying and having no place of belongingness. Additionally, I use my work to understand situationships or emotions that I had while trying to find my own home. My inspiration and main imagery behind my work also comes from the idea of living organisms, more specifically living organisms' body parts, structures, environment, and textures. And that is because I find that one of the only constants that have stayed with me throughout my whole life has been nature. No matter where I stayed or where I go, nature has always been a huge part of my life in some form or another. Therefore, nature has always stayed with me. A really good example of how I use natural imagery in my work is in keeping my dignity. This work is about, as we can tell, a shell that goes in the wall. For turtles and tortoises, shells are used as a protecting mechanism against predators. It keeps them safe from the outside world. However, it also keeps their own individuality, almost like a fingerprint between each of the corners of its own shell. And that's the point of my turtle shell itself with this project. This work is talking about how I try to protect myself from the outside world from being vulnerable and not getting hurt. However, I keep my own individuality as well as I want people to see me. One of the main things that I find in this work to be so important is all the little glass bottles. These glass bottles have memories or small instances of imageries of my favorite childhood books, favorite songs, poems, little ideas, and notebooks, and I feel that are very important because that is the structure that has helped me keep me and turn to be who I am today. Additionally, in my work, the process is really important since I find that in order to build my projects, each technique or idea that I have, it's kind of like a process of meditation. A really good example of this process of meditation, it is specifically in the yarn that we can see at every single crevices behind the turtle shell. This yarn not only worked just to fill in the space, but it was also a way to meditate and go through the process of time and how much I have come so far to who I am today. In a way, I'm weaving my past with my present and my future in between each hold in order to make my own shield. Another project that has very similar context and very similar techniques, it is actually As Light as Your Dreams. This artwork specifically talks about how your dreams or motivations or skills that help you to keep up out there and to move forward sometimes are the same things that weights your shoulders. In a way, how sometimes your benefits can leave you to keep you back behind. One of the main reasons, and I think we can all talk about, it's the way that it was done, and it is because of the metal rods and the steel that is all around the structure of the dragonfly wings and the center, as well as the chains that you're supposed to wear on. It is not an interactive piece, but it gives the illusion of it. This piece is specifically important to me because this is also another piece that shows how important process it is for me in material meaning. One of the main reasons about it, it's also steel rod. Steel rod, just as I use as light as your dreams, as well as keeping your dignity, it's a technique that I use specifically in order to show determination and a sense of stress, as I have a deep fear of fire. And the welding technique that I use, the acid oxygen, it is a technique that literally uses flames into it. So not only in order to build this whole armature, I had to, not only do I have to carry that weight and everything, but I also have to go through stress and in a therapy method, almost like a shock therapy method, in order to go through the stage and grow to the person I am today, thus giving myself an important place. While a lot of my work can have a lot of meaning and a strong force and a lot of strong processes, there's also a lot of lighter meaning into it, such as the next piece. This untitled artist book is talking about a research and an interest that I have over the fungi world. I think the fungi world has such a niche interest because what we see physically of the fungi, the little mushrooms that grow up and everything, is just a small little speck of what it actually is. In fact, it is just the reproductive system of a mushroom. A mushroom is a lot bigger than that. Yet, I think this piece had a lot of research not only to find my curiosity in everything, but also to use for future projects. I think one of the biggest pieces that we can see of research in this art book is not just the writing and how it comes on the sides and the main scientific name, but it's actually this side that it's using spore prints as a decoration but also as an identifier. So spore prints, it is used in a lot of foragers as well as scientists in order to detect and identify the plant. In fact, according to Malcolm Flores, the author of Field Mycology, the spores printing is used to identify the species, search for spores in microscope, herbarism, culturing, and even display, such as is done in here. In fact, I didn't actually do spore printing, I mimic spore printing. But what is spore printing? Spore printing, it is a technique used again by berry foragers and scientists when they cut the top of a mushroom and they'll put it in a piece of paper. Once it is on the piece of paper, they leave it overnight, and once they take the mushroom off, they see a small print that is done by the spores, which is the kind of like the pollen or the reproductive system of the fungi that it leaves on the sides. And depending on the species, it can change the color, texture, and even some of them can even lead to some oxidation. I think and we can definitely see this research right on this side on the back page of my artist book. Additionally, for this book, I use many different materials and techniques, one of them being printmaking, especially relief prints, that while I am a sculptor, I really enjoy doing paper making as well as printmaking. Before actually becoming a sculptor, I was really interested in printmaking, and I was about to do that as my concentration. On more meanings of material meaning as well as material techniques, we have another piece, another wearable piece called as Wave at Times. A Wave at Time is a wearable piece where it talks about the transition of time and news cycles with the idea of marine life, as we can clearly see. One of the biggest pieces of material meaning is that I use real sand dollars that I collect and add them into the piece to show time and death. Because once a sand dollar is an actual animal, but once it passes away, it turns into this beautiful, it gives this beautiful skeletal figure that a lot of people do use for decorations, but these are also important idea. These are also very important for the environment as they break down in the sand and give a lot of calcium to the sand, thus giving life for plants to absorb the energy, the calcium and everything and turn into nutrients actually, not energy, absorb nutrients and turn into the whole cycle of life. And that's why that is the explanation that I wanted to show in my work. Up here, it's showing how the cycle of life going down to the cycle of death and going back up. Additionally, the use of sand dollars is just to demonstrate time and how as much as hard and difficult time and death and everything can be, it can also be very nurturing, and we have to give time to heal. Sometimes in death and destruction, there's healing in between. Last but not least, I want to talk about my newest piece that is in the BFA exhibition in the UTSA for fall 2025. Haunted Memories is part of my BFA thesis, Threads of Deconstruction, which is a four sculptural pieces that talk about how uncomfortable and difficult sometimes change can be, and how much I have turned to who I am today. This piece specifically talks about haunted memories, which is pretty much the memories that you already solved in your past, memories that you already solved, that you have already processed, that sometimes come back again to haunt you. I specifically used the imagery of a cocoon or a pupa, which is the same as my other 4 projects in Threads of Deconstruction, as it is a process of metamorphosis. In fact, pupa, or the plural of pupa, pupae, it is part of, according to the Encyclopedia of Insects, it is part of the complete metamorphosis. Well, it is the stage between after the larvae goes into a cocoon to protect themselves and do the transformation to turn into its adult body. In complete transformation, many of the insects that go to this type of metamorphosis, it is butterflies, moths, bees, and much more. I generally wanted to express how much I grew in this change, and again, change is not linear. And a lot of the times, the same processes that we and memories that we go and we have already processed and experienced and situations that we have dealt before sometimes come to haunt us and lead us back to remember them and, have to learn all this process of accepting, changing, and learning again, thus having a lot of my fishing wire in place. As I wanted to show that sometimes these memories can be an individual situation, or sometimes you have to go again and deal with them again, process the situation again. Additionally, my process while I was doing each individual cocoon, not only was it a representation of like annoyance, fear, practice, but it was also a count to let each feeling of uncertainty, of regret, of pain out in each cocoon and turn it into something beautiful, something in which I become today. A new person, a beautiful creature, as some can say. I really hope you liked the presentation. If you guys have any questions, you guys can let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and I hope to guys see you soon.